Okay, yeah, hi, we're live. Hi, everyone. It's Monday night, and once again, here we are, the Tilt Hour. And thank you for coming. I hope you all had a wonderful 4th. If you're in the United States, I hope you had a wonderful 1st if you were in Canada. And I hope the rest of you around the world just have wonderful days. I know.
Okay.
Okay,
Hey,
so here,
yeah,
just a minute.
hi, we're live. Hi, everyone. It's Monday night, and once again, here.
Here we go. I'm so sorry I do that. But yeah, I'm up here visiting the family in Canada, and it's hot, and I've been having a wonderful time though. Busy, busy. So I really appreciate you guys coming on to hear what we've got to tell you tonight because it is going to be super interesting. You know how we always bring you something on Monday night to motivate you, to inspire you, or we train you? Well, this one tonight is going to probably be a little bit of both. It's a great training, but the words that you're going to hear are also going to help motivate you, help inspire you. And our Kristen on the panel has put together an amazing slideshow for us tonight. And we can all use this because there's times when we run into situations that we don't know how to talk ourselves into or we don't know how to talk ourselves out of. So I'm so grateful that she's doing this, and I can't wait to take some notes. And I'm going to turn it over to her right now. The title of it tonight is called Discover How to Communicate When It Matters Most. And let me see. Yeah, it's Discover How to Communicate Best When It Matters Most. And I think we can all use some help. I know I can, that's for sure. So I can't wait to let Kristen take it over and talk to us. So go ahead, Kristen, and the night is yours.
Thank you, Nettie. I'm really excited about what I have planned to you, but I do feel like I need to be honest about this, okay? I'm being really selfish because I actually read this book. I think I've mentioned it before about conversations, and I realized how bad I am at communication. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody out there who's worse than me, but I have my own little habits that I've created and just really, some not great stuff going on with my communication skills. So reading this book, there's so much information, and I was like, you know what? There's no way I can. I was finally, to be honest with you, I'll say this, and I bet you're going to be at the same point when I start doing this presentation. You're going to be like, you know what? There's just too much. I'm just going to keep sucking at talking, and I'm just going to deal with what I have to deal with, but it's too much to learn how to get better. Because that's how I actually felt going through this material, and that's why I was like, oh, I gotta teach it. I gotta give it to somebody else so that I can learn it myself better. And so I'm going to give you the assignment up front for this presentation, so that way you understand my purpose behind why I'm teaching this. So your assignment is to go out and get this book. Majority of, actually pretty much all of the information I'll be sharing tonight comes directly from this book. It's called Crucial Conversations. You'll get the name of it when I put my presentation up. But the reason your assignment is to go out and buy this book, hopefully by the end of the hour, you'll understand the importance of acquiring these techniques, learning these skills, and actually getting better. And this is just this, I promise you, you're going to walk away completely confused. Like everything's going to kind of go over your head, and you're going to be like, okay, where do I start? My hope is that by the end, you'll be like, I want to actually accomplish this and complete this assignment and go out and get the book. And then my gift to you is actually I will be giving you a link to the power presentation in hopes that you'll use it to take notes as you go through the book, so that as you go through the book, you have already basically an outline of all the techniques, all the skills that I'm going to be teaching you tonight. And so that's my purpose of why I'm doing the presentation. And here's the bottom line. Communication is everything. I mean, you think about your life. You think about walking through your day. I mean, you probably talk to your kids, you talk to your spouse, you talk to your significant other. If you're me, I talk to my dog, which let me tell you, I have some really unhealthy conversations with him, which I have to change before I have my own children. And you know, you talk to everybody. You talk to people, even you talk to other drivers in your car. You communicate all the time. And unfortunately, because many of us don't have the skills that are required to have healthy conversations, what starts as a very basic conversation with no meaning all of a sudden turns crucial. Like, think about it. Like, I'm sure if you have a significant other or spouse, you know, it might be something as simple as you just simply ask them to take the garbage out. And all of a sudden, something triggers the way you said it or the way you asked, and before you know it, you're having a complete blowout argument over taking out the trash, but it's not really about taking out the trash. So the point is, every conversation we have, every time we go into communication with another person, it has that potential of becoming very crucial. And this is either going to help your relationships or it's going to completely end them. And the last thing I'll say before I get started is think about your business. I always say that, you know, business is not just about being successful and making money. It's about coming and becoming the best version of yourself. Communication is everything. The way you communicate to your list, the way you communicate to your teammates, the way you communicate to leaders, this is all going to really help and determine whether or not you're truly successful, and even more than that, whether or not you're truly happy in life. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get started because I have no idea how long this is going to take, so I hope I can get through it in the hour. So, Nettie, just let me know when you see my screen.
Okay.
I think it's working.
Yes, I see your screen. It says discover. Now you've gone. Yeah, there it is. That's good.
All right, so like Nettie said, this is called Discover How to Communicate Best When It Matters Most. But again, what you're going to realize is our communication, it matters all the time. It really does, especially for our happiness on everyday life. And again, the book is called Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. You see the authors down here. And again, your assignment is to go out and get this book. And yeah, because I guarantee you, you're going to learn so much. Because the one thing I struggled with is I was able to give out bullet points, but the book outlines a lot of examples that I just cannot get through in the next hour. And so a lot of it will make much more sense when you actually pick up the book and you actually see the examples and see the storylines that they create in order to teach you these techniques. So let's start with the very basics. What is a crucial conversation? Well, a crucial conversation is simply interactions that happen to everyone. It's a discussion between two or more people where stakes are high, opinions vary, and emotions run strong. And this is important because you have to recognize that our opinions vary. Every single person has a different opinion. So for example, you may want to quit your job to go into your business full time, and your spouse doesn't think it's time. Or maybe when it comes to stakes being high, again, this is like any time, you know, maybe it's like you're in a meeting and something has to change within your company, or your business is going to go bankrupt. When stakes are really high, that's a crucial conversation. And the third thing is when emotions run high. So for example, this is actually one they gave in the book, and I just thought it was hilarious because I know it's happened to somebody out there. And you know, your spouse all of a sudden brings up an incident from the other day where they perceived you as being too flirtatious at the neighborhood picnic, and you were practically making out with someone where in your mind you were just being nice. And the interesting thing is that they point out in this book, as you go through this, the more emotionally charged you are with a conversation or with a topic, the less likely you are to actually have a healthy conversation. And we will I'll explain that in a little bit. So here's the thing. How do we actually handle crucial conversations? Well, there's majority of us, we handle them in two different ways. We either avoid them, we face them, and we handle them poorly. But what this book teaches you is you can actually face them and you can actually handle them well. And that's, I think, the most important lesson that you have to learn, is that there is actually a way to handle conversations and handle them well. And I'm going to actually go ahead. Like I said, I couldn't fit everything onto this presentation, so part of this I'm going to actually read directly from the book simply because I can't explain it any better than they can. So, and I thought this was hilarious, so you actually understand what's going on within your body when you start having these crucial conversations. So for instance, consider a typical crucial conversation. Someone says something you disagree with about a topic that matters a great deal to you, and the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. The hairs you can handle. Unfortunately, your body does more. Two tiny organs seated neatly atop your kidneys pump adrenaline into your bloodstream. You don't choose to do this. Your adrenal glands do it, and then you have to live with it. And that's not all. Your brain then diverts blood from activities it seems non-essential to high-priority tasks such as hitting and running. Unfortunately, as the large muscles of the arms and legs get more blood, the higher-level reasoning sections of your brain get less. As a result, you end up facing challenging conversations with the same equipment available to a rhesus monkey. So the point is this. Your body, we are actually not made to handle crucial conversations because of what happens within our body. So the way we communicate with people, it's really a habit. And so once you learn these techniques and you learn the skills on how to handle crucial conversations, you have to actually train your body to follow through. And so that is our goal for tonight. So here's the reasons to master conversations. And I thought some of these were super, when I read them in the book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting because I would never even think about it. So number one, kickstart your career or your business. For example, high performers, people who are good at mastering conversations, they know how to stand up to the boss without actually committing career suicide. So imagine being able to go to your career or your job and actually be able to get what you want out of your job without losing your job because you know how to have conversations. Because here's the thing, within a job, within a business, you don't have to choose between being honest and being effective. You can actually have both. So, and this is, again, all of this, I'm not going to relate it completely to working from home and our business, but you should realize that it's all right there, that it really is all related to, sorry, my camera's off, so I just had a panic attack that I'm not actually live, but anyways, I think I am. Anyways, so the second one is to improve your organization. Thank you, Natty. I was like, oh my gosh, my camera's not there. Panic. Anyways, the second reason is to improve your organization. And I added team building in there. I mean, imagine being able to sit down and have actual conversations with your prospects and with your team in a manner that makes them want to work with you, makes them trust you, makes them it makes them feel respected in the way they understand you, even if you guys have differing views of what they need to do or where they're coming from. And so it's highly, highly important. To improve your relationships. So, for example, two marriage scholars actually found that couples in the throes of heated discussions, they fall into 3 different categories. And this I know you can relate to because I'm not going to tell you which category I fall into. Number 1, those who just digress into threats and name-calling. Those who revert to silent fuming. And 3, those who speak openly, honestly, and effectively. So let's think about what causes divorces and what causes relationships to end, what causes kids not to be close to their parents or parents not being able to relate to their children. It's all about not being able to communicate. So when you begin to master your communication skills, you improve your relationships. And I don't know about you, but I believe that it's very difficult to be happy, content, and at peace if you are in a relationship that has a lot of arguing, turmoil, and distrust. So that right there, to me, is a huge reason to actually, make these techniques a habit. This next one, revitalize your community. I actually found this one to be super amazing because, and very interesting, the way they point, what they actually bring up. Because if anyone knows me, they know I run a blog for somebody who's in prison, and I'm very passionate about that. And they actually bring this up, and it's all about violence. And they pointed out that not everyone in prison is actually a career criminal. So, for example, not everyone is a career criminal who was born into a horrible family, then shaped by abuse and neglect into a seething sociopath. They found that over half of the people who are convicted of violent crimes are actually first-time offenders who commit crimes against friends or loved ones. Well, why does that happen? Because many times violence is preceded by prolonged periods of silence. They don't know how to communicate their feelings. They don't know how to communicate with those around them. And so it boils up inside of them and eventually they just lash out. I mean, think about why people use drugs, why people go out and commit other crimes. They don't know how to communicate how they feel. So revitalize your community. I mean, that would change everything. Improve your personal health. This one I also found very interesting because I was like, what the heck does communication have to do with your personal health? But they've actually found that when you are able to communicate, you actually have a stronger immune system. When you don't know how to communicate and you're not having these crucial conversations, it actually weakens your immune system. And they've also did a study about life-threatening diseases, and they took a study group, and they had one group walk through a 6-week program where they learned how to express themselves and share their feelings and just share what's going on with them. And they actually had a 9% succumbed to the disease compared to 30% from the study group. So something else that we don't even think about, and that's communication affecting our health. So where do you actually start? It's all about dialogue. And what is dialogue? Dialogue is the free flow of meaning between two or more people. So when it comes to conversation, skilled people find a way to get all relevant information from themselves and others out into the open. At the core of every successful conversation lies the free flow of relevant information. That's all it is. Dialogue is just simply sharing meaning and value and communicating. So they refer to it as the pool of shared meaning. So we all enter conversations with our own thoughts, opinions, beliefs, feelings, and experiences. And these make up our own personal pool of meaning. So when you enter into a conversation with others, you're not going to share the same pool. You're going to have different beliefs, different opinions, different experience, and different thoughts. But the goal is to become skilled at dialogue to make it safe for everyone to add their meaning into the shared pool. Because that's what dialogue really is having people feel as though you can speak and then the other person can speak as well. So here's the interesting thing about dialogue, going back to that. Oh, nope, I'm not there yet, never mind. So yes, the pool of shared meaning is the birthplace of synergy. And the good news is, if you're already like, holy crap, I don't know what to do. The bottom line is, like I said before, dialogue skills are learnable. Chances are you haven't learned them before because we just communicate by how our parents communicated and how those around us communicate. So if they're not good at dialogue, then chances are we're not going to be good at it. And the interesting thing about it, though, is much like the rich getting richer, it's the people who recognize that dialogue starts with them that actually go out and learn how to get better. So it's the most talented, not the least talented, who are continually trying to improve their dialogue skills. So just like you want to get rich and get richer, the dialogue skills have to be the same. So where do you start? Well, you keep calm and you always start with your heart. When you start with your heart, you have to focus on what you really want. And this is what one of the main themes through all of these skills and techniques really is focusing on what you really want. Because when you get into the middle of a conversation that's heated, we lose focus on the purpose of the conversation, what we're actually trying to communicate, and instead it turns into we just want to win, we want to just prove that we're right, and we completely get off track into something that we don't even really want. So when you focus on what you really want, you have to remember that it starts with you. I know when I read this book, I'll be honest and say that when I read this book, All I can think about is, ooh, this person really needs to read this book. You know, my mom, she could definitely use this book. My dad, yeah, I might have to buy this for Christmas. Here's the point. You can't change anybody else. It starts with you. So the cool thing is, though, when you improve your own dialogue skills, you're actually going to help those around you because they will naturally come into a healthier conversation with you when you approach them in a certain way. And we will go over those techniques and skills coming up. So just remember that you're the only person who you can directly control. So don't try to change anybody else. Don't buy this book for anyone else. Buy it for yourself and be committed to improve yourself and your own skills. So when you focus on what you really want, you got to avoid moving towards silence or violence. And you have to actually stop and pay attention to what your motives are. And we're going to go over what silence and violence actually are. So ask yourself, what does my behavior tell me about what my motives are? What is it that I really want? And am I acting in a way that's going to get me what I want? Then clarify again what you really want. And ask yourself, what do I want for myself, for others, for the relationship? And finally ask, how would I behave if this were what I really wanted? And the whole key to all of this is a learned behavior to actually be able to stop and look around whenever you're in a conversation and recognize what's happening and pay attention to what's going on. And you have to actually be conscious of your communication skills so that you can actually ask yourself and stop yourself and say, okay, am I getting a little bit off track? Am I really focusing on what I really want? And here's the other key, which, again, is a hard one for a lot of us to digest. I know me because I tend to go towards these a lot. And that's refusing the sucker's choice. The sucker's choice are two ugly options. We either can be honest and attack the other person, or we can be kind and withhold the truth. That, if you think about it, chances are you think that those are the only two options that you have. You either have to be honest with your boss and attack him and tell him he's wrong and tell him how horrible he is, or you have to just be kind, you have to be the victim, and you just have to withhold the truth and shut your mouth. And we tell ourselves that those are our only two options. So as you consider what you want, notice when you start talking yourself into a sucker's choice. What to see if you're telling yourself that you must choose between peace and honesty, between winning and losing, and so on. So how do you break free of these sucker choices? You have to search for the and. So how do you search for the and? Well, an example is maybe there's a way to be honest and respectful. So you have to ask yourself, how can I approach my boss and be honest and yet still be respectful? We can express our candid opinion to our boss and be safe. Always search for that and, because it is there. So steps to this. Clarify what you don't want. Add it to what you do want, and ask your brain to start searching for healthy options to bring you to a dialogue. So again, just taking the steps to figure out what it is that you don't want, what you do want, and actually coming up with healthy options on how to bring a healthy dialogue to whoever it is that you need to communicate with. And I believe there is something I wanted to share about this. So I am going to give you examples of this because I think it's really important. So when you clarify what you really want, for example, what I want is for my husband to be more reliable. I'm tired of being let down by him when he makes commitments that I depend on. Then clarify what you really don't want. What I don't want is to have a useless and heated conversation that creates bad feelings and doesn't lead to change. So then third, present your brain with a more complex problem. So combine the two into an and question that forces you to search for more creative and productive options than silence and violence. So, for example, how can I have a candid conversation with my husband about being more dependable and avoid creating bad feelings or wasting our time? The way I look at this is if you've ever heard of, I think it's, oh, I have the book, but I forget what it is. Anyways, he talks about afformations instead of affirmations, and it's all about asking the right questions. So this is what it kind of reminds me of. You know, when you ask yourself a question like, why am I so poor? Well, you're going to just immediately start giving yourself the negative answers. And if you change that question to how can I get rich, you immediately start getting the positive answers back. And to me, this is kind of the same thing. When you actually follow these steps, what you're coming up with is a clear question that's going to give you the answer that you're looking for, a way to communicate your feelings, a way to communicate with who you need to communicate with. So the next step to all of this, and this is huge, because safety. Safety is why conversations go bad, when safety is at risk. So you have to learn to look and be aware when safety is at risk. And again, this is just a learned skill, a learned technique, and a learned habit. So you have to learn to spot crucial conversations. That's the first go. Because again, what happens is you start talking to someone about something, like me and my sister, for example, we do this all the time. We do it all the time. You know, we'll start in a conversation, everything's going great, and then 10 minutes in, before I know it, we're arguing about something, and to be honest with you, I don't even know what we were arguing about. So at some point, our conversation went to being just a normal conversation to being a crucial conversation. And that's where you have to acquire these skills to actually learn to stop and spot it before it spirals out of control. So you have to watch for conditions and be aware to what is happening with ourselves and to others. So to learn to spot crucial conversations, stay alert for the moment a conversation turns from a routine or harmless discussion into a crucial one. And then you have to reprogram your mind to pay attention to the signs that suggest you are in a crucial conversation. So you're looking for how you're feeling physically, emotionally, and behavioral. You know, things change physically when you're talking to somebody in yourself and in the other person. Same with emotions and behavioral. And so these are stuff that you can look at not only for yourself, and when you start maybe crossing your arms and moving back and starting to get upset and your behavior's changing some. When you recognize that you're doing this, well, that's a crucial conversation, but in the same sense, you have to be aware of when the person you're talking to is also having these signs. So learn to look for safety problems. So people who are gifted at dialogue keep a constant visual on safety. When it is safe, you can say anything. When it is unsafe, you start to go blind. So you don't want to let safety problems lead you astray. Safety problems are simply the lack of respect, the lack of understanding, either you or the other person feeling as though you're being attacked and not being understood, and it can just get really ugly really, really quick. So here's where we get into the silence and violence. When people begin to feel unsafe, they start down one of two unhealthy paths. They either move to silence, which is withholding meaning from the pool, or to violence, trying to force meaning into the pool. And this is where they start talking about, too, where the more passionate you are about the subject, like I'm not going to lie, I will give you an example for myself. Okay, I am truly really passionate about our justice system, the death penalty, but I have had to learn to rein in my emotions because I recognize that when I had a conversation about this, I would get very defensive, I would get very heated if that person did not agree with me. And the conversation would really quickly turn into me trying to force my meaning into the pool, force my opinion, and force that other person to change. And what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't allow them to share their opinions, their beliefs, and actually listen to them in a respectful way. So you have to recognize when, again, you yourself are getting into silence and violence and where other people are. Because, again, what is dialogue? Dialogue is having two or more people being able to share information and meaning into the same pool. So, silence. The three most common forms of silence are masking, which is understating or selectively showing our true opinions, sarcasm and sugarcoating. Sarcasm is something that, to be honest with you, I used to take pride in. I think a lot of people who are sarcastic do. They think it's funny, they think they're joking, but it's actually very unhealthy. It's very defensive. It's almost like you want to hurt somebody or make fun of yourself and be sarcastic before someone can hurt you. At least that's what I used to do, but now that I think about it, I must have grown somewhere because sarcasm really isn't much in my life anymore. But anyways, avoiding. So that's steering completely away from sensitive subjects. I'm sure that you probably see this whether in yourself or maybe in your family or friends where you just completely avoid the topic. You avoid the conversation, you just deal with it, and you just avoid all of it. Or withdrawing, pulling out of a conversation altogether. And then violence. Violence consists of any verbal strategy that attempts to convince, control, or compel others to your point of view. A lot of this goes to wanting to be right, not wanting to admit to be wrong, you know, again, getting defensive, and just, you know, we all like to be right, but not in conversation, not when we're trying to communicate. We have to set that aside. So it violates safety by trying to force meaning into the pool, and that just doesn't work. So the three most common forms are controlling, labeling, and attacking. So controlling consists of coercing others to your way of thinking. Again, I mean, you can just think about a controlling relationship. You know, one person is trying to coerce another person into thinking the way, but if you try to put that into business, I mean, if you have a boss who controls everything and wants to coerce you into doing what he says and you don't agree with him, well, chances are you're not going to want to work, you're not going to be committed to whatever decision you come up with, and it's just not going to work. Labeling, it's putting a label on people or ideas so we can dismiss them under a general stereotype or category. Attacking, you have moved from winning the argument to making the other person suffer. And yeah, that's not cool, because again, that goes back to what is it that you really want out of the conversation. When you begin to attack somebody, you know, where you just want to win the argument and that's all you've gotten to, well, you completely lost the purpose of that conversation to begin with. So here's a little diagram for you to start understanding where you have the pool of shared meaning, you have the safety. There has to be safety in order for two or more people to feel as though they can start putting their input into that pool. And so again, that's the silence and the violence that you want to be aware of. And here's the most important thing. Again, it always goes back to you. Know your style under stress. Become a self-monitor. Actually pay close attention to what you're doing and the impact it's having, and then alter your strategy. Because again, you can't change the other person. You can't change your boss. You can't change your teammate. You can't change anyone but yourself. So if you pay close attention to what you're doing and you start using these techniques and skills that, again, we're going to start getting into even more in a minute, then you'll actually start changing how those other people communicate with you, because they begin to feel safe. So they'll actually be more willing to talk to you. So specifically watch to see if you're having a good or impact on safety. Again, back to that safety. If there's no safety, there's going to be no communication. So how do you make it safe? Well, you need to step out. So when you recognize that safety is at risk, either for yourself or for the other person, when others move to silence or violence, step out of the conversation and make it safe. When safety is restored, you can go back to the issue at hand and continue the dialogue. So how do you actually do this? Well, yeah, we'll get into that. Sorry, I forget which slide's coming up next sometimes. Decide which condition of safety is at risk. There's two big ones. Mutual purpose. Do others believe that you actually care about their goals in the conversation, and do they trust your motives? This is where I want you guys to actually get really honest with yourself. When you have conversations with each other, with other people, do you actually care about the purpose? Do you actually believe and care about other people's goals and what they want and what their motives are? Because that's important, the honesty, the authenticity within a conversation. And then the mutual respect. Do others believe you respect them? Do you actually respect other people when you're communicating to them? To be honest. Sorry. Yeah, so make it, okay. So here's the next one. Apologize when appropriate. When you, this is also a hard one, because who wants to admit that they were wrong? But it's the biggest way that you're going to be able to create safety very quickly. And that's when you clearly violated respect, apologize. You know, I'll give you an example. My nanny, well, I used to be a nanny. I'm actually officially retired from that. And there were times where the kids would drive me insane. And I would just get mad. And I would yell. And There were times that I did it when I was wrong. And here's the thing. The kids didn't want to talk to me and didn't want to, I then violated respect and I violated safety, even with little kids. And so I actually had, there were not many times, but there were times where I had to actually apologize to a 5-year-old and say, listen, I was wrong. This really wasn't a big deal, but I kind of got upset because, you know, whatever, and I apologize for that. I'd like to talk to you about this. And the amazing thing is it works. When you actually apologize, it works. And the reason why I use this example too is going back to kids. I don't have kids, but what I've recognized just being a nanny and being around a lot of other kids is that communication is a learned behavior. It's a learned habit. And so as a parent, as an adult, we want to have the best communication skills so that way our kids can grow up learning how to communicate. I said this in one of my videos. I mean, imagine being able to actually sit down with your kids and have open and honest conversation because they know they can trust you. They know that you respect them. They know that they can put their meaning and beliefs into that shared pool. I mean, that is powerful and would save a lot of heartache for a lot of parents. So then you want to contrast to fix misunderstandings. So when others misunderstand either your purpose or your intent, use contrasting. So start with what you don't intend or mean, and then explain what you do intend or mean. So it's a don't and a do statement. So I don't want this to happen, but I do want this to happen. So that's contrasting. Make sure you provide them with a clear statement of what you don't want and what you do want. Again, just opening up that communication. So these are the steps to making it safe. So if you notice a conversation is kind of getting out of control and you have violated safety, either they don't feel like you care, they don't feel like you respect them, or the mutual purpose is being lost, you want to apologize, use contrast, and the third thing is to use what we call crib to get to mutual purpose. So when you're at cross purposes, use 4 skills to get back to mutual purpose. Commit to seek mutual purpose. And these you actually do out loud within your communication, within the conversation. Commit to seek mutual purpose. Come up with, if your spouse, what is it that we really want? Like, commit to actually sitting there in the conversation until we have come to an agreement. Recognize the purpose behind the strategy. And invent a mutual purpose and brainstorm new strategies. So crib, commit, recognize, invent, and brainstorm. This one I love because if you're in our company, which many of you are, or if you are into building your own business and marketing online, we all know how important mastering your story is and then being willing to tell your story. So this I know you're going to be able to relate to, and you're also going to find really interesting how this actually has to do with our conversation. And going back, I didn't really explain this crib very well, but again, my purpose is for you to be able to take this presentation, take these slides, go get the book, and actually sit down and have your outline all ready for you. So that way you can study these techniques and actually get good. So here's the thing about stories that you have to realize. Emotions just don't happen, okay? So emotions just don't settle upon you or are forced upon you by others. Others don't make you mad, for example. You make you mad, and only you can create your emotions. And this, let me tell you what, this pissed me off. I remember when I was younger, I'd get into fights with my sisters. And every single time I got into a fight with my sister, if I went to my dad, I'm like, Dad, she makes me so mad. I can't believe she did this. I'm just so angry. And my dad's like, she didn't make you mad. She didn't do anything. You made yourself mad. And I would get so mad at him. And then I'd tell him that he made me mad just by saying that. But what you realize is that you are in control of your emotions. How you feel is your decision. So you're actually handing over your power if you allow people to make you feel a certain way. You know, if you're at a job and you feel like you're being abused at your job or taken advantage of, maybe you are, but only you can allow those emotions to come into your life and into your body. And so, oops, trying to read that bottom one. So claim 2. once you have created your emotions, you either find a way to master them or you fall victim to them. That's the bottom line. Those are your two options. So you're either going to find a way to master your emotions or they're going to completely control you. And if it were me, I'd rather find a way to master them and be in control of my own emotions rather than allowing them to take control over me. So stories create feelings. Nothing in this world is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. I just love that quote because it's so true. Nothing in this world is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So how do we actually tell a story? Well, we see and we hear something, and then we form a story into our mind. That makes us feel a certain way, and then we act. And here's the thing. We tell stories in our heads, at least I do, all the time. I mean, I'll be sitting at a restaurant, and maybe the server is kind of grouchy and like whatever, and doesn't give me good service. Well, I make up a story in my head about why that person, why that girl is so horrible, and why she's horrible at her job, and she just I need to talk to the manager and tell him how horrible she is, and this makes me feel angry because I came out to the restaurant to eat, and now I'm going to act, and I'm going to go tell the manager on him. Well, that's a story I completely made up in my head, you know? I don't know, maybe this girl, maybe her mom just died, but she still has to pay her bills, so she has to go to work. I don't know. I mean, we don't really know what's going on. This is kind of a random story, example, but, or, you know, you tell stories at work. Your boss says, you know, he might tell you, you know, come to my office. Well, all of a sudden you start telling yourself these stories of what might be going on. And then you begin to feel, okay, my boss hates me, my boss, I'm going to get in trouble, my boss doesn't understand me, my boss is out to get me, and then it forces us to act in a certain way. So we might go into that meeting completely defensive, not open to hearing what he has to say, and we've already made the story up in our head. So this is how stories, like, literally can control our lives if we allow them. So skills for mastering our stories. We actually have to retrace our path. So we go backwards. So we act first. You have to notice your behavior. Ask, am I in some form of silence or violence? And then you have to feel. Get in touch with your feelings. What emotions are encouraging me to act this way? Tell your story. Analyze your story. What story is creating these emotions? And get back to the facts. What evidence do I have to support the story? Because chances are when you get back to the facts, all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, actually, the facts tell me that there could be about 1 million different stories that go with these facts. So stick with the facts, and then you'll start coming up with the actual story. Watch out for what they call clever stories. And we all have fallen into this trap. And I already know you guys are all probably like me, and you're thinking of somebody who is this, and you're like, oh my gosh, I know this person does this all the time. Again, try to always bring it back to you. Think of times that you've done this and that you've fallen victim, and you started telling your victim stories, which it's not my fault, and you blame everybody. We all hear this, especially if you're in home-based business. You all hear it. Oh, it's the company's fault. You know, my sponsor left me. I don't have a team. I can't do it because the commissions don't pay out, or the compensation plan's not good enough. That's a victim story. It's not my fault. Or a villain story. It's all your fault. You know, if you're in a relationship and you're constantly looking at your spouse and saying, well, I'm right, he's wrong, it's all his fault. We don't, you know, he won't talk to me, he won't communicate with me, he won't do what I say, it's all his fault. Villain. And then we have our helpless stories. There's nothing else I can do. And, I mean, imagine walking through life, and I know many of us are. We're walking through life with these stories going through our head. And how can you be at peace? How can you be happy? How can you be truly successful if these are the stories that you're telling yourself? This is why communication is huge. So why do we actually tell ourselves these stories? Well, they get us off the hook. We don't have to take responsibility for them. They keep us from acknowledging our own sellouts. And we just don't want to admit that. So here's the important thing. Tell the rest of the story. Am I pretending not to notice my role in the problem? Why would a reasonable, rational, and decent person do this? going back to, again, what do I really want? And what would I do right now if I really wanted these results? Actually stop and take the time to ask yourself these questions when you find yourself in these situations. So then we get into state my path. This is all about how to speak persuasively, not abrasively. So it starts with sharing risky meaning. So when you have something that's really risky, you know, talking to your boss, maybe talking to your spouse about something that is really tricky, could easily be misconstrued or whatever. You have 3 different people. You have the worst people at dialogue. They're going to alternate between bluntly dumping their ideas into the pool and saying nothing at all. So for example, you're going to hear, or you're going to say, you're not going to like this, but hey, someone has to be honest. Well, that goes back to the sucker's choice of thinking, well, you just have to be the bad person, and that's the only choice. Or the person stays quiet. The good person at dialogue, they say some of what's on their mind, but then they understate their views out of fear of hurting others. So they talk, but they sugarcoat their message. And the best, they speak their minds completely, and they do it in a way that makes it safe for others to hear what they have to say and actually respond. They are frank and completely respectful. So how do you do this? How do you actually tell the truth and speak openly and yet do it in a way that maintains safety? It comes down to confidence. People who are skilled at dialogue have the confidence to say what needs to be said to the person who needs to hear it. They are confident their opinions deserve to be placed in the pool of meaning. They are also confident that they can speak openly without brutalizing others or causing undue offense. And then it's humility, because you remember, this type of confidence, it does not equate to arrogance. Skilled people are confident that they have something to say, but they also realize that others have valuable input. They are humble enough to realize that they don't have a monopoly on the truth. They don't have to be right. They may believe something at the moment, but acknowledge that with new information being added into the pool, they may change their mind. And then skill. People who willingly share delicate information are good at doing it. That's why they're confident. They speak the unspeakable, and people are grateful for their honesty. Again, it goes back to skill. It goes back to a learned behavior, a learned technique. So, stating your path. This is actually when you have to go, you know, you've walked through all the other steps, and you have to actually go and approach your boss, or approach your employer, approach your spouse. You always want to lead with facts, because facts are the least controversial. But they're also the most persuasive element of your path to action. If no one can argue with facts, but you have to start with facts, and that's it. You don't say, well, this is what happened, and this is why. It's just the fact. And then you tell your story. Explain what you are beginning to conclude. So, for example, one thing that they put in there, an example they put into the book is, a wife who sees a receipt from a hotel. And so she automatically jumps to the conclusion that her husband's cheating on her. So this whole long story begins to create in her mind, and she gets mad, and she gets angry, and she's emotional, and she's hurt. And they walk through how you can actually you state your facts. Hey, I found a receipt in your wallet. It's leading me to believe that something may be going on. And then you ask for others' path. Actually take the time to encourage others to share both their facts and their stories. Because what you might realize is, it was, again, this was an example that it was a complete misunderstanding and there was nothing going on. But if she had gone into that conversation, oh my gosh, you're cheating on me, how could you do this? Well, you're going to hurt your relationship. You're going to hurt what's going on. And so when you actually take the time to stop, share your facts, share your story, but then listen to the other person, that's where you're going to not have those miscommunications. Talk tentatively. State your story as a story. Don't disguise it as a fact. So don't do conclusive ideas, Encourage testing. Make it safe for others to express differing or even opposing views. Allow people to share. Explore other people's paths. Again, this goes with start with heart. Be sincere when you're talking to people. and be curious. When you ask somebody, how are you doing? Actually be sincere that you're opening yourself up to an actual conversation. Encourage others to retrace their path. So that's the see and hear something, tell a story, you feel, you act. Because when we help others retrace their past to its origins, not only do we help curb our reaction, but we also return to the place where the feelings can be resolved, which is at the source, the facts and the story behind the emotions. So again, as you encourage somebody else to go through their own path, you get back to the facts or why they feel the way they feel. And then we're going to use AMP, A-M-P-P, and that's to encourage others to share their past, which are 4 power listening tools that make it safe for people to speak frankly. And here's what they are. You got to ask. Start by simply expressing interest in the other person's view. Mirror. Increase safety by respectfully acknowledging the emotions people appear to be feeling. So acknowledge and speak out loud what you believe that person is trying to say to you. Paraphrase. As others begin to share part of their story, restate what you've heard to show not just that you understand, but also that it's safe for them to share what they're thinking. And then prime. If others continue to hold back, prime. Take your best guess of what they may be thinking and feeling. And hopefully this will open them up to speaking again. So as you begin to share your views, remember to always agree. Agree when you do. Build, which is if others leave something out, agree where you do, and then build upon that. And compare. So when you do differ significantly, don't just say others are wrong. Compare you to your 2 views. Be open. Again, it goes back to that humility and being humble and being able to admit that you have your belief, but maybe, just maybe, with more information, you'll come to a different conclusion. I'm not going to get much into this chapter because it was very business-minded, but it does have a lot to do, especially in families and, again, in teams as you're building your business. But it's important that when you actually have these conversations, to actually move everyone to actually take action, you have to decide how to decide. So there's command, consult, vote, and consensus. Command, decisions are made without involving others. Consult, input is gathered from the group, and then a subset decides. Vote, an agreed upon percentage swings the decision, and then consensus, everyone comes to an agreement and then supports the final decision. There is a place for every single one of these. Again, even within your family, as you're dealing with your children and your spouse and your significant other, there's times that you're going to have to make the decision and that's it. There's times that you can talk to your kids, you can get their input, but then it goes back to you. And there's times that there'll be a vote and there's times that there'll be a consensus where everyone has to come to an agreement. Here's the deal. Communication works for those who work at it. So again, if you're completely overwhelmed, don't worry. I am too. I was. Just keep going through the information, but understand that communication works for those who work at it. So let's put it all together really, really quickly because I know I'm running out of time. You start with heart. So focus on what you really want and always refuse the sucker's choice. Go after that and. Don't just say, oh, I've got to be the bad guy or I got to stay quiet. Learn to look. Look for when the conversations become crucial. Look for safety problems. Look for our own style under stress. Make it safe. Apologize when appropriate. Contrast to fix misunderstanding. And use crib to get it to mutual purpose. Master my stories. Retrace your path to action. Separate fact from story. Watch for those 3 clever stories and avoid them. And tell the rest of the story. And then you state your path. You share your facts. Always start with your facts. Then tell your story. Take the time to ask for others' path. Talk tentatively and encourage testing. Explore others' paths. You're going to AMP, and ABC is what I said, which is ask, mirror, paraphrase, and prime. And then you're going to agree, build, and compare. And then you're going to move to action. Decide how you'll decide and document decisions and follow up. That's important. So, another one of my favorite quotes, to improve is to change, to be perfect is to change often. So again, always remember it goes back to you. You are the only one you can change. So if you want to improve your conversation skills and your communication with others, improve. And if you want to perfect them, make sure you're changing often. And again, this is the book. Make sure your assignment is to go get this. After reading this book, you recognize as you're walking through stores, as you I sat with my family over 4th of July. You listen to people, you listen to yourself, and you realize how unhappy people are because we're simply not listening. We're not communicating. And so we want to always go back to that. And I'm trying to get back to my screen. I hope I did not lose any of you guys. I know that's like a ton of information, and it's a bunch of craziness. But again, my goal is simple: to help you to recognize how important this really is. How, if you can acquire these skills, learn these techniques, and actually apply them into your life, it will change your life. It will change your relationships. It will change your business. It will just change it's going to change the quality of life, because communication is everywhere. And my last statement is this: go into conversations and communication acknowledging that we all come from different walks of life. What is common for one person is not common for another. So common sense doesn't exist. Okay? So go into conversations open and willing to listen. Because when you do this, you start understanding people. And that's going to make us a lot better. So I'm going to pass it back to Nettie. And again, I hope you guys aren't too overwhelmed.
Wow. I wouldn't say the word I want to use is overwhelmed. I would like to say the word I want to choose is fantastic or awesome or amazing. That was truly, you really put together such an amazing PowerPoint for us all to follow, Kristen, and thank you so much for doing that. I caught a few things in there where, you know what, we think that we're really good at conversations, but yet the way you describe things and everything, and what, things that pop up, I know you opened my eyes, so I know you had to open everybody else's out there too. It was extremely powerful, and I wish we had more time so that if they were asking questions that we could, get to it. But people that are watching us out there, please feel free, write your question down, because Kristen will get back to you and she will help you. And if you need to speak to her privately about an issue, like perhaps you've got something going on, you just don't know how to solve it. I'm not saying she is the end all at it, but she could certainly guide to you possibly a chapter in the book that could help you get through a certain circumstance, because there's nothing worse than feeling trapped in your own body and not having a voice and not being able to have a conversation with somebody that you so desperately that you need it with them. So thanks so much for showing us, laying it out. I mean, it was a lot to take in, but it flowed so beautifully. So I want to just thank you for that. And I saw such great remarks in the chat roll. So yeah, you knocked it out of the park. And thanks for bringing that to us, because especially with the internet business, if we do not know how to communicate to our people, we're probably going to go down with the ship, because that is so essential. We meet every different walk of life in the business that we're in, and we need to be able to hear their story and listen to them and talk to them like they're the wonderful human being that they are. So we all needed to hear this tonight. Excellent job. We're going to have to wrap it up because it's 9:01. I just want to say to you, I know the rest of you watching tonight, thank you very much for coming, and I know you enjoyed it as much as I did. We would love to have you on our team. This is what goes on with us. I mean, we help each other. We motivate each other. We inspire each other. So for heaven's sakes, don't sit back and wait. Don't feel that you can't talk to somebody. We just helped you tonight, but we could help you even more. Join our tribe, the Total Inspired Living Tribe. You can do that by clicking the Let's Get Started button down below. We would love to have you join with us. But if someone else has invited you here tonight, get back to that person and say, I'd like to give this a go. I want to join, so how do I go about it? And they will help you through it. But if one of us on the panel, you want to talk to us, get a hold of us on Facebook. leave a message on the chat roll. Does not matter. One of us will definitely get back to you, because we would love to have you join us and love to help you go after your vision, your dream, your goal in life. Don't sit back not knowing how to say it, because the communication is there and we're going to help you. So anyways, gang, I hope you've had a wonderful evening with us again tonight. And as usual, next Monday night, we will be back the same place, same time, different topic. But if you want to join us, join now. Click that button below, and yeah, we'll let you into our private Facebook group and our tribe, and you'll be away to the races. Okay? So everybody have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I know this is going to help you. You're going to find it somewhere, maybe in an ice cream store or the grocery store or with one of your children. Something's going to trigger you this week with what Kristen has helped you with. Take care. Love you all. Bye. Have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.